The logo, the logo is okay. Well, live and absolutely. What a match we witnessed, and what a game we witnessed. A fast win for GT Gujarat Titans, and I think at one moment, I think it was looking that Gujarat Titans has already won the game. I think one or two over to spare, but the way DC made a comeback, thanks to David Miller. I think he was fantastic with the bat. He tried his best, but unfortunately, he failed to finish the game for DC. Ashok said, your views on the game. At one stage, it was looking that GT are cruising through the game after the wicket of Tristan Stubbs. I will say, because at that point, the way Tristan Stubbs and KL Rahul were batting, I think chances were high for DC. But at the last point, I think that over from Siraj, I think the way David Miller batted in that over, I think DC's chances got higher, but unfortunately they failed to finish up the game. What is your thought on the game, sir?
Yes, it was almost a David versus Goliath showdown, really going down to the wire. But for Delhi Capitals, a match not to be. Absolutely, you're right. I think that 23 runs in the 19th over that Siraj gave away. It was not just that over. I thought that at that stage the GT unit looked confused. There was a lot of confusion on the ground. Shubman Gill took a lot of time marshalling his team. The bowlers leaked a lot of runs, and they also had a penalty by the time they reached the last over. That was very evident that on the ground they were looking a little shaken up. But full credit to David Miller for having taken it down to the wire. Of course, in retrospect, he should have taken a ball of that second, a run of the second last ball, and that would have ensured a super over. But that was not to be. So GT kind of just scraping through with a victory there.
Yes, absolutely. I will come to you, Mohor. Fast win for GT. Very, very close, very, very well. At last ball thriller, I will say. But for GT, I think obviously they managed to score 200 plus on his comeback. Skipper, Shubman Gill scored that important 70 odd runs. I think Butler did brilliantly with the bat. The Josh Butler that we all know, finally, he has shown that he is making a little bit of comeback in terms of batting form. But I think as a unit, the fielding unit was superbly good. I think the catching, the fielding, I think superb. Even the last run out of Josh Butler at that particular moment, under such pressure. How do you assess GT's performance in all the departments? Start with the batting and then the fielding and the bowling.
I think they were much much better today. They looked far more, looked far more. I mean, under control. If you have to talk about the batting, then yes, good start was given. Sai Sudarshan fell early, but then Shubman Gill paced his innings. He took his time, the way he usually bats. We got to see his natural game after a long time. So he paced his innings. He took his time, and then of course Josh Butler, and of course we have to mention Washington Sundar as well. I mean, he
Yep.
was really good today after a lot of criticism, after a lot of, I mean, obviously because of the kind of performances he had been giving. But today he showed what he is capable of. Also, but yeah, of course, we didn't get to see much of the middle order or the lower order batting tonight, which was because the top order and
Yeah,
Washington
super.
Sundar was able to fire. But then if we again go to the bowling, I think some were excellent. For example, Rashid Khan, it is lovely to see him back among wickets, and he was able to control the overs really well. His googlies were falling into place. So nice to see a world class bowler like him come back in form. Of course, Ashok Sharma as well. I'd say yes, he was quite expensive, but yeah, there are sparks of brilliance in his bowling as well. Like if you talk about his pace, I think it's excellent. But yeah, he was bowling a lot on the fuller side, which was again Siraj's main problem in the. I think it was the 18th over. Yeah, he
19.
had a bit. Yeah, he assisted a bit. I mean, it was wrong of him to assist it that way. Other than that, even Rabada was good tonight. The fielding was excellent. Glenn Phillips, obviously, we know the kind of fielder that he is. The Washington Sundar, sorry, the Sai Sudarshan catch, the Sai Sudarshan run out. I mean, I think after a long time, I saw most of them performing as a unit, which was nice to see instead of being reliant on just one person or two people. So, yeah, I think if they maintain this form, they'll be able to reach the playoffs.
Yes. Ashok sir, what is this relation between David Miller and heartbreaks? I think we all know, in South African jersey, even in previous, in IPL also, in different scenarios we have seen, and now again in this game. Do you think that, at one stage they needed two of two, right? And that time he hit that ball, he could have gone for that single. At least make sure that, okay, the match is drawn at least. So do you think that should have been done at that moment, to putting that trust on Kuldeep for that single run, or he did the right thing that, waiting for the last ball, keep it for himself?
Well, if you saw the way Vipraj batted, I mean, he made, I think, 10 or 12 runs, but the way he batted, he looked in control. He looked confident. Of course, he got that ball on the offside and he was caught out by Shubman Gill, but he looked confident. And Kuldeep is also not really a bunny when it comes to the bat, right? And I think
Yes.
he could really have taken that call and at least, look, the bottom line would have been that they would have squared it off, and that means that they would not have lost and then leave it to Kuldeep to figure it out. I think it could well have been the right call. But then that is who David Miller is. The brand David Miller is a finisher par compere, and he had that supreme confidence that he will be able to pull it off. The kind of shots that he played, he looked in prime form, and therefore he backed himself up. Unfortunately, didn't work out.
Yes, absolutely. Mohor, Shubman Gill made a comeback, absolutely, and a good comeback with the bat. Especially, we were all looking forward to see Shubman Gill at least scoring some runs with the bat, and he looked good. But what is your assessment of his batting today? I think he started little bit scratchy. I think he was struggling a bit, but eventually he managed to, come up with a good strike rate. I know around 150, 155, if I'm not wrong. So, what is your assessment of his batting throughout that innings?
Yeah, so when he started, yes, he did look a bit scratchy. He did look sort of underconfident. He did look under a lot of pressure. So he did not give himself too much of the strike. He gave Butler most of the strike. He was the one who was hitting every ball. So he did not need to go on strike and strike hit every ball. But then yeah, after a point of time when after Butler got out and Washington Sundar came in, both of them, I think the way Gill paces his innings, especially in T20Is, not just based on hitting, but also based on strike rotation. That is what we got to see after a point of time. He was hitting, he did accelerate after a point of time. He hit those, sixes and fours, and then obviously the strike rotation part was also there. So I wouldn't say, yeah, of course, because I've seen like his batting before, so I wouldn't say this was his. I don't think this was his best batting as of yet. But yes, after coming back from the T20 World Cup snub, and also after the injury concern that he had the previous game, I think he looked good. He spent a lot of time out there in the middle. He got runs, and I think this will give him the confidence to, perform even better in the next match.
Yes. Okay. Shomikta has joined us also. Shomikta, your view on Gill's innings? How you looked that innings of Gill?
Good, good. Without being spectacular, good. It will give him a lot of confidence. Um, that's fine, and it's very important for the captain of a side to get going. That is very, very important because Gill has gone through a lot of things over the last few months. Injuries, missing the two tests against South Africa, the biggest blow being um, the World Cups, T20 World Cups now, and he was sort of devastated. He never expected that. I mean, the last game that India played, he was the vice captain, and then overnight he was not even in the squad. So from that, I don't know whether he would he will get back to the Indian team, Indian T20 side, in the immediate future. Because if you look at the pecking order, you have Sanju Samson and Abhishek Sharma, the two incumbents, and then Jasassi Jaiswal is sitting out, right? Vaibhav Suryavanshi is the new kid on the
Yes.
block. Then Gill, so Gill slides down in the pecking order. So
Mm.
it could be a little difficult. Um, Obviously, after the IPL, the focus will be on Test cricket and the 2027 ODI World Cup. So the focus emphasis would be more on 50 over cricket as far as white ball cricket is concerned. And in Ireland and Zimbabwe, India will rotate. India very likely will go with the second string sides, and maybe uh, there could be a opportunity for Gill, but to avail that opportunity, Gill needs to have a strong IPL. So if he
Mm.
can do that, if he can do that, then you never know because he's still very young.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think consistency will be key. Ashok sir, I will come to you. KL Rahul. I think another great knock from him. But over the year, we also see, he also get criticized for the strike rate and also, the winning contributions. I think there are many instances where he played such knocks, but unfortunately, the team doesn't, cross the finishing line. I think today also, again, this kind of, conversion will come up again. So how do you think of that? KL Rahul played exceptionally well, but again, that strike rate issue, again, do you think that he could have done better a little bit when it comes to the approach?
For sure. I mean, if you saw his innings up to about 42, 44, he was actually kind of, I wouldn't say struggling, but the strike rate and the acceleration was not quite there. If I'm not wrong, that 42 was off 27 balls. And then suddenly he moved gears, he changed gears into top gear and then took off. There was a flurry of sixes. We saw, uh, vintage KL Rahul really coming into the fore. He could have done that a little earlier. And my point is that even at the toss, when Shubman Gill was asked what he would do if he had won it, he said he would bat. So what I'm saying is that it was a pure play batting wicket. The boundaries were not too long, and therefore, one question that one could ask is, was 210 good enough for this kind of an opposition? From the same token, I think KL Rahul could have accelerated and made sure that Delhi Capitals would have got to it much earlier rather than really leaving it down to the wire.
Yes. Yeah, Shamikta, yeah, I was coming to you only because we have watched KL Rahul, very closely in last few months. So, what is your view on that now?
I will come to that, Snehashish, but for the moment, I think we can put KL Rahul on the back burner for a while because ultimately it had come down to the final over. And maybe we
Yes,
need to talk about the final over a little more.
David Miller.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah, because the thing is that it is my view that when in the final over, how many runs were required? 12, 13, something like
13,
that.
13,
13,
13.
13 runs required. David Miller at the crease and Prashit Krishna bowling. Any day
Yeah.
of the week will give that gives Delhi Capitals an advantage. So my view is that, and this is a question, my question to all the panelists, Ashok, Snehashish, and Mohor. What I saw is very poor cricket. First, Vipraj Nigam, when he should have taken a single, he started off with a four. When he should
Yeah.
have taken a single and give the strike to David Miller, he wanted to do it in a blaze of glory, and in the process lost his wicket. But some unadulterated stupidity came from David Miller because he would have returned as a hero. Eventually, he became the villain. The
Hmm.
not taking that single was unadulterated stupidity. I mean, it's not that you are the only one in the team who could bat. Kuldeep Yadav can bat as well. He is good enough to take a single. So even if he is not scored taking that single, you are what? You are getting a super over. You are not losing the game. So why are you not taking that single? This is my problem. This is my question. And as far as my observation is concerned, it was pure stupidity. So it is to Ashok, Snehashish, and Mohor. How do you look at it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ashok.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. So yes, Shomik, we spoke about it, which is that absolutely. I think this quest for that glory shot, is has to be completely eschewed at that point of the innings, and they could have easily gotten themselves over the wire, if you ask me. Vipraj actually played a fairly good innings, even though he didn't take that single. He scored about 12 runs, and he showed that he could have got the runs. So also the same argument holds for Kuldeep, which is that if they had taken that single, I'm sure that Kuldeep would have, at level the scores would be, at the baseline the scores would be level, and I'm sure that Kuldeep would have been able to really take it down to the wire. But I think they really missed the trick there and was not required at all.
Yes. Okay,
Okay, over to
Gargi.
you, Snehashish. Gargi has joined us. So over to you, Snehashish.
Yes, yes, yes. Gargi has joined from us from Delhi. Gargi, you were in the stadium. you see the the emotions at the stadium, the way it changed after over, because at one stage was looking that GT cruising to that game, then suddenly that over came from Siraj. David Miller batted superbly, but unfortunately that didn't happen in the last over that Prashid Krishna bowled. But how did you see the game from the stands, from the press box, and what is your view on the game? How did it panned out?
See, there are two aspects to this. One, GT finally fired as a unit tonight. If you look at how they were with the bat, three of them, Shubman Gill, and the others that batted, it finally looked like
Josh
Gujarat
Butler also.
Titans. Josh Butler, uh, and also, one second, I'm missing one more person.
Washington Sundar. Washington Sundar.
Sundar.
Yeah, Washington Sundar. So three incredible batting performances that you actually got to see from the Gujarat Titans, and then the way they came back with the ball as well. Rashid Khan's spell was incredible to watch here, bowling with an economy of 4. But on the other hand, I'm going to start off by saying that DC should have won this game. It was almost set up for them. Yes, there was scoreboard pressure. Yes, Rashid Khan had, at one point did not let the partnerships build, but David Miller had everything there. Again, it comes back to, as Ashok was also alluding to that same point, that it comes down to that one single at the end of the over in the final over. If that had happened, it would have gone to a super over. And you know what? You asked me about emotions. This is the most, erupting press box that I've ever seen, because and also, in all honesty, when that last ball happened and when that review for that wide was taken, this is the most clueless that I have ever seen a press box looking, because none of us had any idea what was going on. In when you're watching on a TV screen, because you're looking from very closely, you always have the commentators giving a context to everything that's happening. So for a couple of minutes, we did not know if that review was taken by the umpires for a no ball, for a wide, or if it was Delhi Capitals who took the review. So for the first couple of minutes, no, everyone was confused as to what happened, because we thought it was a review from the umpire for a no ball, but that wasn't the case. So everyone was, sort of looking at each other, trying to figure out what was happening. And sorry to say also this, that everyone in the press box was rooting for a super over here, because you needed that extra fire in that game as well.
Yes.
But of course, David Miller, the way that he lit up the stadium tonight, I don't know if you were able to see in the TV or not, but the topmost stand at the Arun Jaitley
Yes,
Stadium,
yes.
that's where
The
David Miller
ball
was.
went there.
and
Mm.
and it is vertically very high. It's not as if, Kolkata's topmost stand might not be
Mm.
that high, but Arun Jaitley's stand is very, very high up. And we were all in awe. The press box was erupting in applause over and over again over how David Miller was batting tonight. He tried his best. He was injured. He got hit on his hand pretty badly, but came back, tried his best. That one little single, I think Kuldeep Yadav and David Miller will talk about that for a long while tonight.
What
And
an
David
Yes,
irony,
sir.
Gargi.
thank you
What
as
an
well.
irony. That single, eventually David Miller lost DC the game. But Gargi, isn't it the case that Gujarat Titans lost the opportunity to take the game completely away from Delhi
Absolutely.
Capitals because of Washington Sundar? If you look at his scoring pattern, first 31 runs, 15 balls, and you look at the next 30 runs, how many balls did he consume? What was Washington Sundar the reason why GT failed to take the game completely away from Delhi Capitals?
I will still, Shomik, I will still somewhat give the benefit of the doubt to Washington Sundar, because again, that pitch is not exactly a true batting wicket where it's outright flat. There is some assistance for spin here as well, and Kuldeep Yadav and Akshar Patel in the middle overs were bowling really well. But I would say that if there was anywhere where Gujarat Titans could have taken control, it was in the bowling. Uh, the way that Rashid Khan had set things up. After that, it was on Prasidh Krishna to hold the innings. Unfortunately, he was the one bowler who was bowling in the slot over and over again. From Mohammad Siraj as well. You saw some brilliant variations at the end. He was taking the pace off and was able to beat David Miller. But then again, great performance by Gujarat Titans. Finally, they fire as a unit, and they've done well. Even if it was a last ball thriller, I think they're going to take a lot of confidence from here. This is exactly what Gujarat Titans needed.
Yes. Yes, Mohd, I will come to you. Obviously, as Gargi mentioned, that obviously DC lost the game, but there's quite a positive from that game that they can take. One is Kuldeep Yadav bowling. I think he looked good. I think that wicket at that time of Josh Butler. I think Josh Butler was going superbly well at that pace, and he was looking all set for that fast 100 of this season. But what is your assessment of Kuldeep Yadav bowling today? I think the pitch was a bit, helpful for the spinners, and I think he was hitting the right line and length.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Kuldeep Yadav being Kuldeep Yadav, the way he is, he utilized the conditions really well. He made the best use of whatever was available, and he bowled. I'd say he bowled really well. The crucial moment, breaking that Shubman Gill Josh Butler partnership, it was very needed during that time of the game. So he did that. Additionally, if you're talking about positives, I would also like to mention KL Rahul as well because he's finally back among runs. He was not able to fire at the top in the previous two games, and this will again give him a lot of confidence for the next one. And of course, the finishers. I mean, David Miller, the way he started batting, I think before he came in, it was the required run rate was around 15, and they were batting at around 9 or something. Then when he came in, it got more or less equal, like around 10 and 10. So I mean, a lot of positives from the team, and maybe just that one single run would have made the difference. But nevertheless, I would give like both the teams have done really well today. It was not a one-sided clash.
Yes. Sumita, your views on KL Rahul's knock?
He failed to take the team over the line. That is the most important thing. Yes, I mean he was dropped when he was in his 20s, and then he capitalized on that. He accelerated, then once again he deaccelerated. So at the end of the day, he failed to take his team over the line. Good T20 players eventually take their teams over the line. So KL Rahul, very easy on the eye. He's a fantastic player. He is very, I mean, aesthetically, he is very pleasing. But at the end of the day, there is a reason why he is not in the Indian T20I squad, and this is one of the reasons because I mean, it is about taking the team over the line. There is no point scoring very attractive 80s or 90s, any stuff like that. If you can take your team over the line, just go back to Shivam Dubey in the final over at the World Cup T20 World Cup final, and New Zealand briefly came back into that game. That 24 runs in that six deliveries, and that completely slammed the door shut on New Zealand. That is what, as far as T20 cricket is concerned, as far as T20 innings is concerned, that is what is called impact knock. So KL Rahul played well, but it was not an impact knock.
Yes,
Can I
yes,
add something
absolutely.
to this?
Mm.
I
Yep.
really wanted to add, and this is an observation that I'm making after watching KL Rahul for the past year in multiple formats in multiple teams as well. I mean, franchise cricket and the Indian team. One thing about KL Rahul is if there's family around, if there is a family in the stands, or there's someone backing him up, he seems to bat in a completely different way. I remember I did a report back in England during the Manchester Test, if I'm not wrong. Uh, and there was this report that I had done where I said that someone very close to him, one of his family members, had told him that do not fade in the background. Make sure that you are also leading the team and backing up Shubman Gill because he needs you at this point. And from then on, his batting had completely changed, but also you could see him very involved in the field as well. So I think there's this one factor of KL Rahul that he needs something there. I don't know if it's a mental thing or something like that, but it's just an observation that I have made.
Yes. Ashok sir, for DC, another good thing that happened, I think Lungi Ngid's bowling form. I think again he was brilliant with his slowers. I think game by game his slowers are working very beautifully for him. What is your view on Lungi Ngid's form with the ball?
I think it's been a continuation of what he's done. The slower one is really where he's becoming the specialist, and I agree with that. In fact, if you look at all the three bowlers, Akshar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, and Lungi Ngidi, between them they have bowled 11 overs, and I think that was a very crucial one. Even though I think they took 2 wickets between the three of them, but I think it was very crucial to bring in that much needed control over the match. And if you contrast that with the little bit of confusion that Gujarat Titans had, I mean, not taking away anything from Rashid Khan, that 3 for 17 was absolutely fabulous. The googly came back. But I thought I saw Shubman Gill really struggling to figure out whether to give the ball to Prasidh Krishna. Even Siraj in that 19th over bled 23 runs. I thought there was a little bit of a confusion there.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
absolutely.
sorry for interrupting Snehashish, but I have another point to add to this. And Ashok,
Okay.
the point that you brought up is very, very valid, because there was a point in time where I was watching and closely observing Shubman Gill, and I was wondering, why is he at the boundary so much? Why is he not, in the 30-yard circle leading his bowlers when the chips are down? But from what I could see was he was constantly having these conversations with the dressing room, with the dugout, with Ashish Nehra as well, and trying to get some insight. What you might not be able to see in the TV as well was that over and over again, Sai Kishore was coming in and giving a lot of messages to the slip, to the 30-yard circle, and then they were passing on the message to Shubman. So I think Shubman was struggling tonight.
That was my next question to you and Mohit. That what is your view on Shubman Gill's captaincy today? Anything more that you observed, Gargi, that you want to point out?
No, I think it's again Shubman Gill is a captain who is in progress. He's very much in the process of becoming a better captain with every match that he plays. But at the same time, we have to understand that when it comes to him, there are not, I wouldn't call it issues, but he can get better with how he picks and when he picks certain bowlers to bowl, which is where he was struggling tonight and had to get inputs from Ashish Nehra. So we saw that happening back in England as well. We've seen that happening in ODIs as well. So that's something that Shubman Gill is clearly actively working on.
Absolutely. More? Anything more to add to that?
Yeah. Basically, yeah, like Gargiri mentioned, he is still a young captain. He's still learning every game. But like, I completely agree with everything that she said. But like, one thing that I would like to mention is the underutilization of Washington Sundar. I am not really sure as to why that happens. I don't know the strategy or what the discussions are in the dressing room. But Washington Sundar is well and truly capable of bowling in a T20 game. I mean, he can control the runs. So that is one thing that I really am concerned about. And secondly, of course, yeah, the bowling changes, when to bowl whom and what happens. Constantly discussing and who bowls in the 19th over, who comes in the 20th over, who bowls where. For example, I personally think I'm having a brain fade moment. But did Prasidh Krishna bowl in the power play tonight?
Mm.
Did he bowl? Yeah. So sometimes,
Yeah.
bringing in him much later and not letting him bowl in the power play. These are some of the things that he could work on. The bowling changes and obviously, Washington Sundar part is a big question in my head.
No more. It's about the dimension of the ground.
Oh, okay.
Some massive players were batting, and you would, especially with the right-handers, will bring the ball into them. Also against the left-handers, some very strong-armed cricketers were batting, and it's basically the dimension of the ground. Maybe if it were a bigger ground, he would have given Shubman would have given Washi the ball a bit more. But it was always at Kotla, one of the smallest grounds in our country, 55 yards boundary, and it's always fraught with risks. Giving an off spinner, unless he is absolutely top class off spinner, even you'd think twice to hand over the ball to Nathan Lyon at Kotla in a white ball game, especially in a T20 game. So from that point of view, it is I understand where it came from as regards Shubman is concerned in terms of the way, as you said, is underutilizing over. But I think he had his logic.
Yes. Okay. Last question for Ashok sir and Shomikda. The captains of Akshay Patel. What is your view on the captains of Akshay Patel? Where he could have done better, and also with the bat, I think he should have done a little bit better. The way he went for that shot and he didn't understand the googly completely. What we saw, he didn't read that. What is your view on Ashok sir? You can start and then Shomikda.
Yeah, I think I'll go back to what I've been maintaining, that the combination of Akshar Patel and Hemang Badani, and we saw him actually standing outside the dugout for a long time and really driving the entire thing. So it's a combination, and they are not those flamboyant kind of leadership folks. They are people who are very suave, who understand the game, who believe in the analytics, who believe in the strategy and then the execution, and that's the template that they followed. Frankly, I agree with you that Akshar Patel could have delivered with the bat a little better, but I think they really stuck to their plan. In fact, in the pre-show we talked about how Delhi Capitals has been struggling at the top of the order. They actually came good this time. The bowling unit performed well. So I wouldn't really say that this one match really casts any aspersions on Akshar Patel. I think that is the way they have chosen to go in and execute. Perhaps they could have that run out that happened with Tristan Stubbs perhaps could have spoke in the wheels for DC. Otherwise, we would have seen a different result.
Shamagda, your view on Akshay Patel captain?
Snehashish, now Ashok has brilliantly elaborated on Akshay captaincy. I don't want, because if I say something, that will be sort of repetition. Now that you have mentioned Googly, let me stick to Googly. And I think the biggest positive for Gujarat Titans from this game is that Rashid Khan has got his Googly back, because after his shoulder injury, he has lost his zip like Varun Chakravarti. He has lost his zip. And the other day I was having a private conversation with Zubin Barucha on that when I did that Varun story. And he told me, you look at Rashid, how he has lost Rashid too has lost his googly. He was not getting that fizz of his googly. And today he got that back. The first wicket, Nitish Rana is fine. The second wicket, Samir Rizvi. The ball of the match, the way he completely outfoxed him and castled him. Brilliant, brilliant. And that fizz off the deck, that was missing. And now Rashid has got his back. He is a world class operator, and I think that is the biggest positive for Gujarat Titans from this game.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you, Ashok sir. Thank you, Mohar. Thank you, Gargi, and thank you, Shomita, for joining in.
But yeah,
And yeah,
Snehashish, you cannot say good night and goodbye without asking Gargi about the win percentage factor in decimals. How was it on
please,
the final over?
please, Gargi.
I had said 60-40. See, it was pretty close to that.
No, but
I had said
decimals. Now you are our on-ground reporter. It has to be in
no,
decimals
no,
and
no.
semi-decimals,
See, Shomik, it's gone down to the last ball, right? The match went down to
right?
the last ball. So it's 50-50.
Good answer.
Simple as that.
Good. Good answer.
So yeah, I think this is the best way to possible to end the show. So thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you everyone to who have come up and see the show. And tomorrow again we'll be back with the pre and post match show as KKR will be taking on Lucknow Super Giants in Kolkata. Till then, take care and good night.
Good night.